Evening, everyone, and welcome to the first gift call of this amazing book, Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? So, if you don't have this book yet, you can buy it on Kindle or as a paperback copy as well. It's available on Amazon, and I would highly recommend that each one of us should read it from a different perspective, a different view on relationships with God
શું નાખ્યું બેટા
as
બે ત્રણ ચમચી ફરીથી નાખ પછી તો ફરીથી નાખજે એકદમ નાનું
who are like special needs kids or disabled or retarded or whatever names we give them in this reality. But if we can actually see their capacities, their uniqueness, and the gifts that they bring in. So each one of us, I think we need to be educated about that. And then how much kinder this world would be, how much empowered each one of us can be over here without like putting those kids into that wrongness, without labeling them, and even the parents and the teachers who are taking care of them, it gives them a lot of tools and awareness to how work with these kids, because we don't actually understand them right now, how they think. Raj, I'm so sorry, I'm in between. In between what? Oh, your camera will be off. No worries. No worries, Raj. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. So whenever like those of you who can put on their videos would love to see you and connect with you, and that brings a different energy, more presence, and would love to hear from you whenever you feel like sharing something, asking a question. Please feel free to unmute yourself and speak. So I'm starting with this book, Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And do you know who said this? Quote is from whom? Does anyone know?
Gary Douglas.
No, much
Einstein.
earlier than that.
Einstein.
Yeah, it's from Einstein. Very true. Albert Einstein said that. So Albert Einstein has like given us like so much quotes on consciousness. They are just mind blowing. And in many of the access books and in other books, you'll find those quotes. And with that, I'm moving on to chapter number 1. And this book is co-authored by Anne Maxwell and Gary Douglas. Anne Maxwell is a very senior facilitator with Access Consciousness who has worked a lot with kids. They had even started off with a consciousness school with Access Consciousness, and it was Anne Maxwell's idea, and she was running it. It has changed like forms since then, but then like she works a lot with kids. She's basically a psychologist also. A word about labels, that is chapter 1. Don't define these children by their labels. You will cut off your receiving of what they have to gift to you. Instead, ask a question. What is the gift they have that I am not receiving? Gary Douglas. Anne says, it has become increasingly clear to me over the years I have spent working with kids and families that there are particular cultures of thinking or attitude with regard to the way people and especially kids should function. Those who do not function according to the rules and regulations in play around them are labeled by the advocates and promoters of those cultures. This tends to happen a great deal in educational and medical communities. So often the conclusion is reached that children who don't fit in need to be taught how to behave so they can learn to function as if they were normal and average and just like everyone else. The problem is that they are not normal and average. My point of view is that by asking them to be normal and average, we are doing two things. We are telling them that there is something wrong with them, and we are asking them to become someone they are not. So, in the schools and otherwise, when they are like they are diagnosed, they're taken to a psychologist, or so they go through some tests, and what they are told that they are below average, their IQ is not that good, they will not be able to perform, they would be slow in learning, and then they give them all the methods and ways in which they can be brought near to the normal and average student. So there is a calibration that we try to do. We have some set standards about how a kid should behave. So their difference is ignored. They are never seen for what they are. Labels evoke images, answers, and definitions, and nothing can be considered that doesn't fit within the confines of the labels. In other words, the labels define, and once one is labeled, he or she is always labeled. So, can you recall one of the labels that you have received as a child? Like my label was Moti. It's I've always like identified. You start identifying and defining yourself with those labels. So, how many labels that we put on ourselves because we have been told, and similarly that happens. They are called as idiots, stupids, slow learners, and all those labels they buy in. And apart from all those in medical terminology, whatever uh, condition they are diagnosed with. Some of
And
the
also, can I say something?
yes, Seema.
So with labels, I remember this, that my father for a very long time used to say ki Seema to guy hai guy. So I never understood this. How can I can be a guy? But that cow wala jo resemblance of Bholi they used to give me. I don't know how, why, but this is one label I could remember.
And how much did he want you to be the guy?
I don't know.
He could
I don't think
easily,
now
like,
that
yeah. So, are you now willing to become the tigress?
yes, of course. And also, I don't know now that he would recant that because I'm no more that.
You revoke recant. You don't have
Father should revoke this because seeing my ways of living right now and the choices I'm making, he should revoke this, saying that okay, I should revoke that she's a guy now.
So, all the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections that you have of what your father should label you as, will you please now destroy and create all of
Yes, ma'am,
and
yes.
now good and bad, quote unquote, or nine shorts, boys, bobets, and beyonds. So if there is a tiger in front of me and I just keep telling it, ye to guy hai, ye to would it stop attacking me? Would it like given a chance if I do something like na silly? And then it would like so tiger को आप कितना भी गाय बोल लो वो गाय नहीं बनेगी. So like let him say whatever he is. Are you willing to acknowledge for who you are? who you truly are. Yes, you can be guy at times, but if you can be tigress as well, or anything else that you
Yes,
that you wish to be.
yes.
So when you label someone, they cannot be actually something else.
True
They
that.
remain confined in those definitions. Hmm? So, so that was interesting. So some of the most commonly used labels are autism, OCD, ADD, and ADHD. In the medical community, all of these diagnoses are described in varying intensity from mild to severe. So briefly, let us look at what these are. Some of you might be aware of it. Some of you might want to have just a brief understanding. So let's see what these conditions actually are. Autism spectrum disorders. So there is a group of mental health diagnoses that fall under the generic category of autism spectrum disorders, or ASD. These include autistic disorder, Asperger's syndrome, and pervasive developmental disorder. These diagnoses attempt to describe a variety of symptoms, skills, and difficulties people have functioning in this reality. People who have been diagnosed with ASD are sometimes referred to as being on the spectrum. They function differently from so-called normal people with regard to communication, social interaction, and relationships. Their behaviors tend to be repetitive and can appear odd, and the severity of their symptoms range from those of highly functional people to individuals who are not able to speak or function in this reality. Now, the second label, obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. OCD is very commonly heard these days. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a diagnosis that describes recurrent and persistent thought patterns and behavior that are repetitive and ritualistic and cause enough distress that they can interfere with daily life. So one of the symptoms is they keep doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah, so they would keep washing their hands. They would feel that they are very unclean, that they need to, they want, like, they keep arranging the things in a particular order. They don't want, always want those things in that order, kept the same way. And they would like keep locking the doors again and again. So these are some of the symptoms. Then there are the diagnosis of attention deficit disorder, or ADD, and attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD. This is very commonly heard with kids who are not unable to sit at the same place in the classroom, or they are hyperactive, so they would keep moving and they would do like kind of risky things. They would keep doing, they'll walk on the parapets, or like they'll do something weird, and everyone would say that they are hyperactive, and people would feel that they may harm themselves at times. People with these diagnoses tend to have difficulty paying attention to just one thing. They appear not to be listening, and they are easily distracted. Those with ADHD tend to be extremely active. They are often unable to remain seated, and their behaviors include fidgeting, squirming in their seats, talking excessively, impulsively blurting out answers, and interrupting. And mostly in our education system, teachers hate these kind of children. They don't want them. They're continuously scolded in the class. ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism are among the labels that can sentence a child to being thought of in a certain way. These labels are known to describe disabilities, and kids with those diagnoses are defined and viewed as disabled, or handicapped. It does not seem as if there is room for any other way of thinking about them once that judgment has been made. I'm aware of how hopeless it can be for those who do not fit into the culture and who are branded and classified as disabled, impaired, or defective. This also applies to the parents of these kids who would like so much for their children to have happy, successful lives. And there are, like, if you see that some movies like Temple Grandin, which is a real life story of people, and then I don't remember the name, that swimmer from India who is like winning medals these days. Like, they are autistic kids, and then they have done so much wonders. So if their parents refused to accept those labels that were given to their kids, they were willing to look into their kids beyond those labels, the capacities that they have. There are, however, more and more stories in the popular press about kids who were diagnosed with autism at an early age and whose parents were told they would never read, talk, or relate to people. These kids are now in their early teens and are doing undergrad and graduate level classes in major universities. What is the common thread in those stories? It is the parents who didn't buy the labels that were placed on their kids and instead recognized that so much more was possible than what the experts told them. These parents encouraged their children to follow their interests and do what they loved to do, no matter how odd it may have seemed. A particularly inspiring story was told by a mother whose autistic son just wanted to play with shapes and shadows. Shapes and shadows. He was failing in his special ed program where he was being forced to do things he didn't want to do. She found that the more she encouraged him to do what he enjoyed, the more his shell cracked open. And when she followed his interests and made resources available to him to support those interests, he began to talk and to thrive. When he was 3 years old, she was told that he would never talk. At 11 years of age, he enrolled in a university and began studying mathematics. At what age? 11-year-old. So, with that, we go to chapter 2, a new perspective. Any sharings, any questions before we move on to the next chapter? All good? Okay. So, what if there is nothing wrong with these kids? What if they are just different? Who says this? Gary Douglas. Now, Anne is saying this. My first job out of graduate school in 1991 as a child and family therapist was at a residential treatment center for kids who were labeled with psychiatric disorders. These were kids who were unable to function at home, in school, or in the community and had failed multiple times in less restrictive settings. In the United States, residential treatment centers are considered to be almost the end of the road for kids. The only places further down that road are jail or state mental hospitals. There are two ways for kids to be at the center. In the residential program, meaning they lived in one of the residential units 24/7 and attended the highly specialized school program as well, or in the day treatment program, which meant they lived off campus and attended the highly specialized school program during the school week. I was hired as a psychotherapist in both the residential and day treatment programs, and I worked with kids between the ages of 3 and 18. My specialty was the younger ones. The kids who were diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism were the ones who presented challenges of a different sort to the staff. Many were in constant motion, even when sitting in chairs. They laughed at all the seemingly wrong times and blurted out answers, but couldn't explain how they got them, even when the answers were correct. The behavioral program had little to no effect on these kids. And interestingly, can you guys at least like identify yourselves with some of these traits? So how much of those uh, autistic traits we all have? We know the answers many a times, but we don't know how we got there. Like we don't know the steps. How did we get there? And no, that then we want to keep just moving our legs or something. But then if we thankfully we are many of us are not labeled, but then we could also have been labeled. The behavioral program had little to no effect on these kids. They were viewed as disrespectful, oppositional, difficult, and hard to work with. Others, who were more severely disabled, seemed pretty checked out and shut down. When they did respond, they seemed to be reacting to something not apparent to the rest of us. Sometimes they became engaged, sorry, they became enraged with what appeared to be little to no provocation. Their emotional outbursts had an intensity about them that straightened my spine. There was a wide range of people on staff at the center, and they came from many different disciplines. My favorites were the magical ones who saw the kids for who they were, not as the labels they had been given. They were the people who gave the kids the benefit of the doubt. They knew the kids were doing the best they could with the tools they had. And these were the people the kids liked best. One of those magical people was a woman named Naomi, who was a specialist in the school program. When I met Naomi, I was fresh out of grad school, and I felt a particular kinship for kids who had difficulties concentrating and focusing. I asked her about kids with ADD and ADHD. She said, it's like they have hundreds of television screens in their heads, and each screen is tuned into a different channel. The volume is turned up, and they don't have a remote to turn it down or switch all the screens to the same channel. They can't help it. So I'll read that again. So for the kids with ADD and ADHD, it is like they have hundreds of television screens in their heads, and each screen is tuned into a different channel. The volume is turned up, and they don't have a remote to turn it down or switch all the screens to the same channel. They can't help it. That made sense to me. At times, it seemed like the kids tried so hard to focus and concentrate, yet they seemed utterly incapable of doing so. I felt a connection with them because I too have always had several things going on in my head at the same time. As a child, I was always being told to pay attention. I would often wonder what was wrong with me that I couldn't do that. So how much, like, we also feel that many times we say that we are overwhelmed, so many things going on in our minds at the same time. And we feel that there is something wrong because we cannot focus and concentrate on one thing that we want to get done in the program. And again, what if that was not a wrongness? What if that was a capacity that those kids that we have, and what if that is a capacity, like very intensified capacity that these kids have, only they have to learn how to work with it. In the program, there was an emphasis on medications, and great value was placed on being able to sit still and listen. It was always clear when the meds went too far in the opposite direction and the kids focused on what they were doing to the exclusion of everything around them. And for example, colored so intently that the colored markers went through the paper with heavy doses of medications. It seemed as if the kids became flat. Their sparkle was gone. Naomi had some suggestions that worked with the kids. For example, she told me, if you can't say what needs to be said in 5 words or less, they won't hear you. So we have we have to talk to them in very short sentences, not long sentences. They would not be able to make sense out of it. So short sentences, not more than 5 words. It was true. Their eyes would gaze over at anything more. However, as useful as Naomi's suggestions were, they weren't enough to make a real or lasting difference with the kids. What she didn't tell me, and what neither of us knew at the time, is that their minds moved at the speed of light. Words were not their preferred form of communication because words were too painfully slow, laborious, and difficult. Although I did not weigh this way back then, I now realize that they communicated primarily energetically. So they read your minds. Whatever you think, they would get to know. And they think that they can also communicate just with their thoughts, because they have thought something. They would assume that their mother, they have already told their mother what they want, what they would like to eat as for food, or what they would like to drink. But then they have to be taught that when they speak to other people, they have to slow down. The others are not as fast as they are. It's not the other way around that they are slow. Actually, they are very, very fast. Fast forward to 20 years later, when I met Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. He put into words what I had known secretly about these kids for so long, but had never given myself permission to acknowledge, as it flew in the face of what was considered real and true at that time. When he said that kids who have been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and or autism become angry when they are told to use words because words slow them down so much. A great sense of release washed through me. Memories of so many different kids throwing tantrums at the center, and later in my private practice came back to me. I recalled the looks of utter disdain that crossed their faces when they were told to use their words, or when someone said, I didn't hear you. It made so much sense to me because these kids do communicate differently. When Gary asked questions like, what if there is nothing wrong with these kids? And what if they are just different? I thought to myself, finally, someone who gets it. What if kids with all those labels could be seen as who they are, not as who they aren't? What could that change? This is very, very profound. I loved it. What if kids with all those labels could be seen as who they are, not as who they aren't? What could that change? Carrie's comments invited me to begin asking questions like what else is possible here that we are not looking at, rather than how can we make this child fit in? What if different is different? Not right, not wrong, just different. These kids aren't the same as other people. They don't have emotions the way other people do. They think differently. They don't understand why people move so slowly and pretend not to know what they actually do know. They have a different way of looking at the world. And what if they actually have special talents and abilities? A 10-year-old boy who had been diagnosed with OCD was in my office that other day. He feels so different from other kids and so wrong. We were talking in a relaxed way and enjoying ourselves. Then I noticed a subtle change in his body. He looked at me, looked at the telephone on the desk behind me, looked at me again, and then the phone rang. I raised my eyebrows and smiled at him, and he smiled back. You knew it was going to ring, didn't you? I asked. He giggled. Yes. Awesome, I replied. What if we could see what they see rather than try to get them to see what we see? What change could that create? I'll read that again. What if we could see what they see rather than try to get them to see what we see? What change could that create? What is created by not acknowledging the abilities these kids have? I believe it causes them to see themselves as invisible, not deserving, unworthy, not good enough, defective, weird, and wrong. What if that is the harm that we do to kids who are diagnosed with the labels ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism? They don't see the world the same way we do. And when we won't see through their eyes, that creates difficulties for them. We need to see what they see rather than try to get them to see things our way. So another beautiful work that I remember of, like this Netflix series called The Good Doctor and Autistic Surgeon. Another like a beautiful way of understanding how they see things in a different way, and what they can add, actually how much more efficient they can be. So with that, we finish chapter 2. Any questions before we move on to chapter 3? So these are small chapters. We can do 3 to 4 chapters in a call. Are you guys liking it? So some of
Yes,
you might have
yes, yes.
already get it. This might be a second read or like listening. Pooja,
Yes, yes. Very nice. It is.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for being here. So, chapter 3, what if your children are perfect? So, if you are parents or guardians or like if you have nephews and niece or anyone who are having one of those capacities, what if there was nothing wrong with them? They are just perfect. What if your children are perfect? Even if they have ADHD, OCD, ADD, autism, or something else going on. Dr. Dane here. And otherwise also, like all the judgments that as parents we have for our kids, what if they were just perfect? Gary says, Dane and I have had the opportunity to work with some children who have been labeled with these so-called disabilities. Initially, we tried to deal with these conditions from the point of view that something was wrong with the kids, and we tried to figure out how we could handle their disability. However, in the process of working with a number of great kids, we have seen that they have many abilities, talents, and gifts that go unrecognized by teachers, parents, and people in the medical and psychological community. People tend to function from the point of view that there is something wrong with these children because they don't learn the way the rest of us do. The reality is that they pick things up in a totally different manner, and we need to step up and find out how they learn, not try to teach them using the methods that might have worked for us, but definitely don't work for them. We would like to re-reference the point of view that they are special needs children. They are actually special talents children. Yeah. So what if we could like see them not as special needs, but special talents children? We call them X-Men after the Marvel comic superhero team composed of mutants with an X gene who use their extra powers and abilities for the benefit of humanity. For us, it is a term of affection. The X-Men are here with us on the planet to make waves. They are a mutation, that is an expansion of the species, but they are being looked as though they are a limitation. We don't believe that is true. So beautiful, isn't it? We would like to unlock the abilities these kids have because it is our perception that if they were given the opportunity, they might be able to change many of the things on our planet that will turn into disasters in the future. So they have the capability to change our world and create a better, different future if we allow them to. We ask that you don't see your kids as wrong, no matter what they have been labeled. Look at your kids not from the wrongness of them, but for the rightness of them. When you do this, you can create a completely different world for yourself, for them, and for everyone on the planet. We hope you will see that you have an extraordinary opportunity to create a more conscious world. You can create a place in which people begin to see the ability and the greatness these kids are. So, what if we can be that invitation to the people around us, to our family members, to our friends who have the like such kids or who are like working with those kids to start seeing them as the potency that they have rather than seeing them as someone who are weak, who are disabled, who need special care. No, none of that. With that, we go to chapter 4. So this is something we can take on as I would say as a movement that we can take on for the at least for the next week or while we are on this book club. Yeah. So I would request all of you to start changing that perspective and talking to people, letting them know that no, don't label them, not to see them as a wrongness. Chapter 4 is creating a culture of question. The purpose of question is to create awareness. Gary Douglas says that. And says So many of the parents who come to see me find themselves at a complete loss as to how to assist their children. Some of them buy into the conclusion that there is something wrong with their child. Many of them extrapolate that wrongness to themselves. They believe that somehow they did something wrong or that they are intrinsically wrong. So they have some genetic disorder or there is something wrong with them that these kids were given to them, or like it's a karma, their bad karma has given them those kids. Yeah. How else could they have had a child like this? Or they have been cursed further still. Having these kids is a curse on the parents, and the child is also cursed. Many of them voice shame and guilt over what they perceive as their seemingly diminished capacities as parents. And most of them try to figure it all out by trying to find the answer that explains why their kid is the way he or she is. They tell me that if they could only understand, they would know what to do. What if these kids are not their labels? Instead of buying into any labeling that is done to these kids, what if we could ask questions instead? Let's talk for a minute about questions. I love the description of question that Gary gives. A question is not a statement with a question mark at the end of it. A question is a question. Unlike what we are taught in school, the purpose of a question is not to find the right answer. The purpose of a question is to create awareness. The question is the key to opening other doorways of possibility. Ants continues, what do you want for dinner? Is that a question or a statement with a question mark at the end of it? It's a statement with a question mark at the end of it because it presupposes A, that the person is hungry, B, that he plans on eating, C, that what he eats will be in the form of dinner. Are you hungry? That is a question. It opens the door to possibilities. Asking real questions is one of the most amazing tools of access consciousness. I find that by asking a question, I'm able instantly to step out of the density of whatever conclusion or point of view is trapping me and into the space of possibilities and choice. The mother of 6-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, came to see me at the start of the school year. She is brilliant, and as is her husband. She and her daughter function with great ease socially than her husband and her son do. The mother and daughter are more outgoing and talkative. The father and son are more quiet and some might say withdrawn. She came to see me because her son was struggling with his first grade program. Reports from the teachers stated that he was acting out, throwing tantrums, not focusing on his work, and isolating during recess. And as these days are going on, when the schools are giving report cards, how many of us would be listening to those kind of reports, like remarks from the parents about the kids? When the boy arrived home after school, he was irritable, fussy, argumentative, and whiny, and his mother would know that it was just a matter of time before he would throw a tantrum. She was well aware of how different her son was. And although she privately acknowledged his considerable talents and abilities, she found herself apologizing to the school staff for his behavior. So she also was like by apologizing, the message that she was giving was that she also was buying into the wrongness of her own kid. All she could see was what wasn't working, and the conclusions she reached were propelling her into a state of despair and hopelessness. She said to me, "It is only the first month of first grade. He has got 12 more years of school to go." I asked her several questions. So now these are some of beautiful questions that we can ask in context of our kids or even with for ourselves. This would open up so much more awareness and possibilities. What do you know about your son that you are not acknowledging? What are his strengths? What does your son require in order to thrive in school? If he could design his school experience this year, what would it be? What does he know that you are not asking about or acknowledging? The questions allowed her to go beyond needing to come up with answers and move into the space of being aware of what she did know about her son, the school, and herself. When she let go of needing to have an answer to justify or prove something about him, she lightened up considerably. She realized she knew far more about her situation than she had given herself credit for. For example, she acknowledged that her son functioned academically far beyond the rest of his classmates and probably was excruciatingly bored. She was able to approach the staff at the school, and together they designed a program for her son. The boy was transitioned into the second grade and was given challenging work at even higher grade levels for many of the subjects. His tantrums and outbursts reduced significantly. She also stopped worrying about how he isolated during recesses and acknowledged that he probably benefited from having some time by himself. She recognized that he was less social than his sister, and that was okay. As a result, she saw his brilliance in using some time alone as a way of managing the overstimulation of school and school recesses. By stepping out of the world of judgment and right or wrong answers, she created a culture of question around her son's experience at school, which allowed everyone involved to see the possibilities and different choices that come with awareness. Anything popping up for anyone? Yeah, so what awareness is this bringing up for your own kids in different areas of life and also for yourself? So now the tool is, what is this? Here are 4 beautiful all-purpose questions I learned from Gary that every parent can use. So if you have done an Access Bars class, probably you are already aware of that. And many of the Access books to talk about these 4 tools. We did it in Body Whispering Book Club also. So these are the 4 questions. What is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? How can I change it? In every situation, every time, anything that is bothering you, you can ask these questions. And especially when we are talking about these kids, when they are throwing those tantrums, when they are getting irritable, when they are like just not able to cope up with the environment, you can ask these questions. The mother of two boys, ages 5 and 3, told me she was at a loss as to how to handle her 5-year-old. Although he had not been diagnosed with ADHD, she believed that he had many of the symptoms. He was impulsive and easily excitable, and he was not well liked by kids his age because he flew off the handle so easily. She said that recently she picked him up from his preschool and took him to soccer practice. After that, she ran some errands with him and his brother. They went to the bank first and then to the grocery store. As they were leaving the grocery store, it started to rain hard, and even though they ran, they were soaking wet by the time they got in the car. She had one towel, and as she dried the 3-year-old, they giggled together. Then, as she attempted to dry off the 5-year-old, he started to scream at her. No, don't. I don't want that towel. I asked her, did he ask to be dried off? No, she replied, but he was sopping wet. In a previous session, I had presented these 4 questions to her. I said, what if you asked yourself, what is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? How can I change it? Yes, Veena, just let me finish this section and I'll take your question.
Yes, yes, ma'am. No questions. I want to share something
Yeah, sure.
for my.
Yes, so let me finish just this topic and then we'll talk. We'll take. Na? So, okay. When you ask it, what do you get? I don't know. I was just trying to help him out. He was so over the top. He gets like that, and I don't know what to do. I asked, what if it had nothing to do with being wet? What if you were using the wrong towel? I repeated, what was that? She said, he just gets so mad at me. I asked, what is he mad about? Beyond being dried with the towel. Well, I suppose he was tired and hungry. I asked, does he get any downtime? She said, well, I try to get everything done. I'm kind of a perfectionist. I want everything to be right. And says, so what can you do with that information? That he's tired and hungry and you have an agenda to get stuff done. She paused before responding. I get that I push him pretty hard to keep up with me. I asked, can you change it? How can you change it? She said, well, I could not pack so much stuff in. I could take him home and let him decompress. I guess that preschool, then soccer, then errands is a lot. I asked, do you play with him? Not very much. I'm usually pretty busy. Anything there could change? She laughed. I guess so. I spoke with her the following week. She told me she had rearranged her schedule so that her son had more time off, and she was making a point of playing with him each day, even if it was just for a little while. She said that life in their house was much easier now. He was happier and she was less driven to get stuff done. All because she asked some questions. Yes, Veena, let's hear from you.
I want to share something about the bars. Actually, my child, he is very intelligent, but the thing is, he just Google things and he was keep on saying that I'm having ADHD, mom, ADHD. So I was knowing
Your
he,
voice is not very clear, Veena. Can you bring your
just a minute, yeah.
microphone closer? Yeah.
Now you can hear?
Yes, I could hear earlier also, but then I couldn't get the full sentences. What is your what is your child like? What's the problem? Like so-called problem with your child?
Actually, he is a little bit ADHD. I have not done the any diagnosis for him because when I come to know that he is having some problem like that because of his writing style, some spelling mistakes and all. So I just come to know that time that bars can help in that. So I started bars for him,
Huh.
and still he was also googled somewhere for his problems, why he's not able to concentrate and all, and
How
he
old
was
is
keep
he?
he's done the 10th now, like just given the exam.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing was, he was telling me that I am having the ADHD. That's why I can't concentrate. His teachers was saying that he's so intelligent, but why he's not giving the full attention to his studies and all. So I was thinking of taking the consultation, but then I just asked him what the solution you can find. You know you have the problem, then now find the solution if you can. So, and then I started giving him bars. He was telling, no, 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 okay, sometimes okay, not daily. So then before 2 months of his 10th exam, I started giving him bar continuously every night, at least for 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And then I should, I'm just sharing that because whoever parents over here, please give the baths to children every day, at least for 15 minutes, like in the night.
So now what is
Because
the now what has changed for him?
yeah, this after he's given the pre-boards at the last fourth pre-board he's given in school. So that time the teacher was saying what a miracle he's doing so well, and they were just I'm also hoping for the best, touch wood. They are hoping that he will be the stood for first in the school.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's a miracle. So everybody was like in teachers and all, they are saying it is really miraculous. He is
Mm.
performing so well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they are able to like let go of all that crap and they just calm down. They can relax because
Yes,
there is how does it get even better than this? So thankful to you, Veena, for sharing that. Actually,
yes.
like
I'm
this,
thankful to Gary and Dan. They are so amazing.
yes,
Like they have created so much for the us. I
yes,
also feel too much better when I take the bars. And I just made a one routine that whenever we are having like night time, just exchange the bars and then sleep.
yes, yes. Bars and facelift and body processes, they just like create like some miracles with your body. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Thank you, ma'am.
totally
Thank you
agree,
for
Veena. Yeah. How does it get even better than this? So I also like a month back I gave a session to like almost same aged boy. He's in class 9 and he was not able to like his grades were falling down, his mother said, and though he's playing very well at tennis, then he had a back injury and then he had to stop playing tennis, so he was getting very frustrated and not able to concentrate, and the parents were worried that what's going wrong with the child. And when we did this bars, I gave him bars, I gave him some body process on his back, and I did an SOP session for him. Just one session. Like in 90 minutes, we did all of that. And the next day or the day after, 2 days, like his mother called me that he is like everything has changed for him. Like he got an opportunity to play again for his school, and he was so excited. His back was better. He had started practicing for the tournament, and he was again like, because that boredom had gone and he could see more hope for his life. Everything was moving. His studies is also getting better now. So like bars can do wonders, guys. If any one of you have not taken the bars class, I would at least say go and experience a session, a bar session. Find out a practitioner near you. And if you get a chance, just get a chance. I would say everyone like go and attend a bars class. Find out a facilitator around you in your region. Call me if you want to. I'll help you find one. Or if you can come down to my place, attend, or we can do something about it. But then like bars can do wonders. Uh, Many a times even we discount what we are getting. So some of us like we keep doing the bars and then we are not able to see the changes that are happening. So just like I'm so glad, Veena, that you could see, that you could observe, and what if we can also see the changes that we have gone through because of that past, and what also seeing that how much of that crap would have affected our bodies, how much illness we could have created, like had we not been regularly practicing bars. If you have been doing bars say for say 1 or 2 or 3 years. So yeah, bars is miraculous, no doubt about it. So then I move on to another story of another boy, Marcus. One of my friends, a school speech pathologist who works in the public school systems, tells this story about one of her students. Marcus was 10 years old. He had been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and had been in a wheelchair from the time he was tiny. He had never walked or talked. He was a joyful little boy who, rather than moving and talking, engaged her with facial expressions. She told me that his joyfulness and total lack of sadness about his condition led her to ask the question, what if this question isn't a travesty? She then asked other questions like, what if my target today is to create as much joy and possibility in his universe as can be generated? What if that became my priority over trying to get him to function like all other kids? She said that as soon as she began to ask questions and let go of her point of view that it was wrong for a child to have the kind of challenge Marcus had, possibilities for him began to show up that she hadn't seen before. Their interactions became playful and fun, and he began to enjoy his time with her even more. One day, she told him, we are going to find a way for you to talk. She started using augmentative communication devices that assist people who have difficulties with spoken and written language. She said that her training told her that because Marcus had cerebral palsy, he wasn't supposed to be able to speak or comprehend what she was saying. However, she told me that over time, he actually began to vocalize and make sounds. Then, one day, when she was at the chalkboard doing a lesson in colors, she asked, what color is this? She said, somewhere behind me, I heard the word green. I turned to see Marcus smiling at the back of the classroom. He did it. Not only did he say the word green, green was the right answer. Doesn't it give goosebumps to you? Hearing that itself. So, what else is possible now? What can we create? And what possibility can we invite this world to? Yeah. So, with this, we'll close the call for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Please be that ambassador of change that you can be out there in the world, giving a new possibility, bringing a new change out there in the world, a new perspective, a new earth. Thank you, and I'll see you again next Wednesday, same time. Bye bye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasim. Thank you so much.